Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun was barely rising over Washington, D.C., when General Marcus Langston, dressed in his impeccable uniform, left his residence for the Pentagon. He had dedicated more than 30 years of his life to serving his country with honor and discipline. His decorations glittered on his chest, testifying to an exemplary career marked by courage and integrity. Yet, this morning, nothing would go as planned. As he drove calmly in his car, a police vehicle appeared behind him with sirens blaring. The shock was instant and incomprehensible: handcuffs, vague accusations, and public humiliation in the street. Bystanders filmed the scene in disbelief. How could a respected general be treated like a common criminal? Marcus felt a mixture of anger, shame, and injustice. He knew that a simple call to the Pentagon could either save his reputation or destroy his career. But he had no idea that this same call would precipitate his downfall, placing him at the center of a scandal that would rock the army and the entire nation. What seemed like a simple misunderstanding would become the starting point of a fight for justice, truth, and dignity. General Marcus Langston drove leisurely down Constitution Avenue, his mind focused on the strategic meeting he was to hold at the Pentagon. His military uniform was perfect, his shoes shiny, and his gaze reflected the discipline of a man accustomed to giving orders and protecting his country. Suddenly, flashing lights appear behind him. An authoritative voice booms through the megaphone. "Stop your vehicle immediately." Marcus slows down, cooperating immediately. But the situation quickly descends into absurdity. Two police officers approach, visibly suspicious and tense. One of them, without consulting the general's papers or verifying his identity, orders him to get out of the vehicle. "Put your hands on the hood," the policeman yells. Marcus obeys, but the humiliation is immediate. Handcuffed in the street, in uniform, surrounded by passers-by filming the scene with their phones, he feels the crowd's gaze weighing on him. Murmurs and whispers rise up: is he a general? Why is he handcuffed? The police officers seem to ignore the general's authority and credentials. Marcus's every attempt to explain his position is interrupted by firm orders and vague accusations. The situation turns into a humiliating spectacle, broadcast in real time on social media by stunned witnesses. Marcus felt a mixture of fury and disbelief in his chest. His entire honor, his entire career, had been trampled in a matter of minutes. He knew he should remain calm, but deep down, a burning question raged: how could a life dedicated to serving his country be treated with such injustice? This simple routine check had just become the beginning of a public and professional nightmare, an event that would change his career and his life forever. No sooner had the handcuffs been fastened than passers-by began pulling out their phones. Seconds later, the video of Marcus Langston, a respected general, handcuffed in the street, was already circulating on social media. Within hours, thousands of views and shares transformed what should have remained a simple misunderstanding into a public scandal. The comments poured in. Some denounced the police's overzealousness, but others, blinded by the virality, offered only contempt and innuendo. A general arrested? What did he do? Even the military are not above the law, one could read here and there. Each message was a further blow to Marcus's honor. When he arrived at the police station, the situation worsened. The officer in charge seemed determined to ignore any evidence of his rank or identity. The uniform, a symbol of respect and discipline, was useless in the face of this dehumanizing judicial machine. In his temporary cell, Marcus felt the grip of humiliation tighten. He thought back to every mission, every successful operation, every life he had protected. All of it now seemed erased by a single viral video. And just as he was trying to remain calm, a message on his phone caught his attention. His family had seen the video. His anxiety mounted. He knew this was no longer just a personal matter, it was a public scandal, and his reputation, built over decades, was now at stake. This public humiliation was only the beginning. What followed would show Marcus that even the highest ranks and the longest careers could not always protect him from the injustice and cruelty of the system. In his cell, Marcus Langston felt the tension rising by the minute. He knew that remaining passive would only make the situation worse. Cautiously, he asked to speak to his immediate superior at the Pentagon. His family, panicked by the viral video, also insisted that the Pentagon intervene quickly. A simple phone call should have been enough to clarify the facts. Marcus was a general with an impeccable record, wrongly arrested by the local police. But what seemed like a straightforward procedure took a disturbing turn. On the other end of the line, the voice of a local military official was heard. Instead of offering support and protection, he listened distractedly to Marcus's story, then noted each word as if searching for flaws. The icy, distant tone suggested he was more concerned with media coverage than the truth. A few hours later, Marcus was shocked to learn that the Pentagon had been informed of the incident, but that his career was now considered problematic. Word spread quickly through military circles. The decisions of senior officials seemed motivated more by fear of public scandal than by the respect due to a general who had served his country loyally. Marcus's frustration turned to cold anger. His honor, his years of service, everything he had built, was in danger of crumbling due to a misunderstanding and bureaucracy. He realized that this simple call, meant to protect him, had actually lit the fuse of a scandal that could destroy his career, his reputation, and his personal life. At that precise moment, Marcus realized that the battle was only just beginning. This was no longer a routine check or a misunderstanding, it was a fight for his dignity, against a system that seemed ready to crush him. The next morning, the video of Marcus Langston's arrest had gone viral across the country. Social media was abuzz, millions of views, comments, and heated debates. National news channels were replaying the footage, often without verifying the facts. The headlines were striking: General arrested by police, scandal in Washington, police humiliate high-ranking veteran. Each media broadcast amplified the humiliation. Journalists focused on the spectacle of the arrest rather than the veracity of the accusations. Interviews were conducted with bystanders who had seen nothing but the viral video. The image of Marcus, handcuffed and helpless, became a symbol of shocking injustice, but some media outlets insidiously misused it to cast doubt on his conduct. At home, Marcus's family was living a nightmare. His wife, Sandra, was receiving anonymous calls, some full of support, others threatening. His teenage children were being bullied at school. Every notification on his phone was a reminder of the magnitude of the storm that was bearing down on them. Marcus, meanwhile, found himself trapped in a media spiral. Every video, every article, every comment seemed to reinforce the idea that he had committed a reprehensible act, when he had simply been the victim of a misunderstanding and overzealous police. He felt his honor and his career eroding under the weight of public opinion. He realized then, this was no longer just a personal matter. The media coverage had transformed an unjust arrest into a national scandal, capable of ruining even a respected general. And in the midst of this storm, Marcus would have to learn to fight the system and public perception, even before he could fight for justice. As the scandal grew, Marcus Langston sensed another threat: political pressure. Local politicians and some military officials, fearing the affair would tarnish their image, began to react defensively rather than righteously. Anonymous calls and official emails poured into the Pentagon, the mayor's offices, and local officials. The words were carefully chosen: General Langston could compromise public order, this matter would be best handled internally. It became clear that some officials were seeking to protect themselves rather than support a man who had been unjustly humiliated. Marcus, usually in control of the situation, felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Every contact he tried to make within the military to clarify the facts was met with bureaucracy and political prudence. Decisions now seemed guided by fear of scandal rather than truth or justice. At the same time, the media pressure continued unabated. Articles began to speculate about possible flaws in Marcus's career, past incidents taken out of context, and even unfounded rumors. The mix of politics and media turned what should have been a simple misunderstanding into a destructive hurricane. For Marcus, the reality was harsh. It was no longer simply a matter of establishing the truth, but of surviving a political and media machine willing to sacrifice its reputation to protect its image. Every call to the Pentagon, every attempt at clarification, seemed to trigger even more complications. And yet, deep down, Marcus knew he couldn't give in. His dignity, his honor, and his name were at stake. He had to fight, not just against visible injustices, but against an entire system ready to break him to avoid scandal. A few days after the arrest, Marcus Langston received an official letter that left him speechless. His career, built over more than 30 years, was on hold while the internal investigation was conducted. The words on the paper were cold and bureaucratic, but their impact was devastating. His office at the Pentagon was emptied by aides, his decorations left on the desk as painful reminders of a life dedicated to the service of his country. Every object seemed to whisper of the injustice he had suffered: the medallion from the Iraq campaign, the military academy diploma, every photograph with his men and women under his command, all of it was now tainted by suspicion and public shame. At home, the tension was unbearable. His family, already shaken by the virality of the video, was facing another blow. The children received embarrassing stares and questions at school, and his wife, Sandra, struggled to maintain her dignity in the face of rumors and aggressive messages. Marcus himself felt betrayed. All his life, he had served his country loyally, respected the laws and rules of the army, and yet here he was being punished like a criminal. The suspension was not merely administrative, it symbolized the fragility of reputation, even for a general, in the face of public opinion and bureaucracy. Despite his anger and frustration, Marcus realized he had to remain calm. The battle was only just beginning. If his honor was to be restored, he would have to navigate a sea of internal procedures, political pressure, and media judgments. His fight for justice had barely begun, and every decision would be crucial to saving his career and his name. The official suspension was only part of the shockwave. Marcus Langston was beginning to feel the true weight of this injustice in his personal life. Every morning, he woke up with a feeling of unease, afraid of receiving another call or message that would compromise his honor. His wife, Sandra, was exhausted. She watched her once confident and self-assured husband withdraw into himself. The children, young teenagers, were bullied at school. Persistent questions on social media, questioning stares on the street, every interaction became a cruel reminder of this scandal. Marcus felt powerless. He couldn't fully protect his family from the public shame that was befalling them. Even among his fellow soldiers, attitudes varied. Some tried to support him discreetly, but fear of reprisals and political caution prevented open solidarity. Marcus felt a profound isolation. Those who once respected and admired him now seemed reluctant to show their support. Every daily gesture, every public outing, became a test of patience and dignity. Marcus understood that he had to maintain his calm and discipline, even when the world seemed to be conspiring against him. The battle was no longer just taking place at work, it was invading his home, his privacy, and the hearts of his family. Deep down, Marcus knew that to restore his honor, he must not only confront the system, but also protect those he loved from the emotional and psychological fallout. Every decision, every word, every move would be crucial in this fight for truth and justice. Marcus Langston knew he could no longer rely solely on reputation or seniority to defend his honor. The only option left was a legal battle. With determination, he hired lawyers specializing in military and civil rights cases. Every document, every testimony, every piece of evidence would become a weapon in this fight to establish the truth. The case was complex. The police officers responsible for his arrest had presented their version of events, minimizing their mistakes. The Pentagon, while acknowledging the misunderstanding, maintained a cautious stance, fearing that any visible action would provoke an even greater media scandal. Marcus understood that bureaucracy and politics posed as formidable an obstacle as the prosecution itself. The first days of the trial were harrowing. Marcus's lawyers gathered videos, witness statements, and official documents to demonstrate that his arrest was wrongful and that his suspension was hasty and unfounded. Each hearing was an ordeal. Marcus had to publicly relive the humiliation, answer leading questions, and face an often hostile courtroom where reporters were more interested in sensationalism than the truth. Yet as the hearings progressed, compelling evidence emerged. The police had ignored standard protocols, the Pentagon had been misinformed, and the decision to suspend Marcus was based on rumors and political pressure. The story began to shift in the media, and some articles finally began to partially restore his reputation. Despite these early signs of hope, Marcus understood that the battle would be neither quick nor easy. Every partial victory required constant vigilance, and every misstep could be exploited against him. This trial became more than a means of restoring his career. It represented the struggle for the dignity of all those who, despite service and honor, could be crushed by the weight of the system and public opinion. As Marcus Langston faced the burden of bureaucracy and public criticism, unexpected allies began to emerge. Former military colleagues, who had observed his exemplary career closely, spoke out to denounce the injustice. Veterans, retired officers, and even some high-ranking officers began publishing open letters and testimonials affirming the general's courage and integrity. Civil rights groups and activist organizations also joined the cause. They highlighted the discriminatory and disproportionate nature of the arrest, denouncing Marcus's unfair treatment. Social media, which had initially amplified the humiliation, now began to share messages of support, hashtags defending his reputation, and detailed analyses demonstrating the flaws in the system. The media pressure gradually shifted. National networks produced in-depth reports, exposing the police's mistakes and the hasty suspension. Public perception began to shift. Marcus was no longer just the arrested general, but a symbol of the fight against systemic injustice and abuse of power. For Marcus, this support was a balm during weeks of humiliation and loneliness. He felt a surge of strength and confidence. Even in the face of political pressure and legal challenges, he knew he was not alone. Credible, respected, and influential allies were now at his side, ready to fight with him for truth and justice. This unexpected turn of events gave Marcus new hope. The battle to restore his honor and career was not only possible, it was now becoming realistic. But he knew that the final step, official recognition and full recovery, would be the most difficult of all. After weeks of legal proceedings, media pressure, and unexpected support, Marcus Langston began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. The evidence was clear: his arrest was unjustified, his suspension hasty, and motivated by political pressure, not fact. Yet, despite this partial acknowledgement, the impact on his career and image remained profound. His name had been tarnished, and the memories of the public humiliation could not be erased. Expected promotions, prestigious command positions, and even the perception of his peers had been affected. Marcus understood that, although he had won the fight for the truth, the shadow of this ordeal would follow him throughout his professional life. Yet beyond his career and official recognition, a deeper truth dawned on him: his story was becoming a symbol. It revealed the flaws in the system, the injustices that even the highest-ranking officers could face, and the need to defend dignity against arbitrariness. Articles, conferences, and veteran testimonies began to use his example to raise awareness and fight against abuses of power and systemic discrimination. Marcus understood that his legacy lay not only in his decorations or his rank, but in the courage to stand up to injustice. His name, even tainted by a few months of scandal, became a symbol of resilience, integrity, and the fight for truth. Sitting in his office, looking at his medals and photographs of his career, Marcus felt a relative peace settle over him. The battle had been painful and his life had been irreparably scarred, but he knew he had done the right thing. His legacy now was not just that of a respected general, it was that of a man who had defied the system, protected his dignity, and inspired those who would come after him.